Very good. Thank you, Chris. Okay, I'm going to start off the meeting by reading this correspondence from the governor in accordance with the governor's Lamont's executive order 7B.
Pass on for the pledge.
I'm sorry?
Pledge.
No, this needs to be read first.
Oh.
In accordance with the governor Lamont's executive order 7B regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting will be held remotely with no in-person attendance. The meeting is being broadcast live on OGAT channel 79 and via live stream on YouTube. The link for YouTube can be found on tonight's meeting agenda posted on the Orange Orange Educational website. Okay, so now I'd like to call the meeting to order. Monday, April 27th at, what time is it? 7:05. Okay. I know that Matt can put the flag up, however, no,
Yeah. Okay.
Matt can put the flag up. However, if we want to stand for the pledge, we can. We just, we won't see your heads. So do we want to do the pledge? I would like to do the pledge, but if anyone, is offended by the fact that someone may not be standing, but please stand up and we'll do the pledge. Matt, can you lead us in the pledge, please? Matt, hear me? Vince, Matt, hear me? Okay, I'll do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, mission statement. Ms. Riccio would be kind enough to read the mission statement, please.
I'd be happy to. The Orange Elementary School District recognizes that the education of each child is the shared responsibility of every member of our community. Our goal is to inspire and empower each student to achieve academic excellence, embrace social and individual responsibility, and lead with integrity. We believe all individuals should be valued and treated with respect. Together, we will make a difference.
Thank you. Dr. Scarpetti, have we received any correspondence or public participation?
We have not.
All right, very well. We'll move on to correspondence. Opinion essays on school uniforms from Mrs. Al's classroom were in your packet for review. Consent agenda. I will be looking for a motion to accept the items under the consent agenda. The items are the regular session minutes from the January 21st, 2020 Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the January 21st, 2020 Board of Education meeting? If you're going to make a motion, please do it verbally because we can't see everybody at the same time. I see Betty made the motion. Do we have a second? All right, I see Susan. Any further discussion, folks?
No.
I'm going to ask this question twice all night so I make sure that I don't miss somebody in case somebody does have something to say. Any further discussion? All right, then. All in favor? Can you do it verbally, please?
Aye.
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 Very good. Opposed? Anyone opposed? Abstain? Anyone abstain? You got that, Mary?
I got it, Ken. Or Bill.
Very good. That's all right. I've been called worse. All right. The minutes from the January 29th, 2020 Board of Education and which was the Board of Education 2021 Budget Workshop meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from January 29th, 2020 Board of Education 2021 Budget Workshop meeting?
I make a motion.
Okay. Betty, second?
I'll second.
Who was that, please?
Ken.
Ken?
Ken.
Any further discussion on this? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstain? Very well. You have that, Mary?
I do, Bill.
Thank you. All right. The minutes from the February February 10th, 2021 budget, Board of Ed budget workshop meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the February 10th, 2020 Board of Education budget meeting workshop?
I make a motion to accept.
Betty, do I have a second?
I will, Susan.
Susan? Okay. Any further
I think,
discussion?
no, I think Ken Vitale
I
is
was gonna-
frozen. He's
Oh.
frozen.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's too bad for him.
I
Okay.
think,
Nice fellow.
All right, hold on a second then. Ken, are you there?
That's Zyman is here. The real Ken.
Ken
No,
Vitale, the other
Ken
Ken.
Vitale?
Yeah, he's frozen, I think.
Yeah, he is. He's gone.
All right,
Going dark.
all right, let's see if we
I
can,
am frozen.
let's see if we can get Ken back.
I am here.
Ah,
good.
good.
Oh,
Okay,
he
can you,
moved.
can you hear us? Ken, can you hear us?
That's you,
I
right?
see myself moving, but apparently you do not.
Let's see.
Uh,
No, you're still dark.
Yeah.
I can hear everyone fine. Am I back?
Yes.
I can hear everyone.
Okay, did you happen to hear the motion? I'm going to read it again. And I believe Betty made the motion though. I'm looking for a motion to
Log
accept.
back
the minute-
in.
I'm sorry?
Perhaps I should log back in.
All right, go ahead. Tell me when you're ready.
Doing that. I did it.
All set, Ken?
Sorry. I was checking my calendar.
Oh, no.
I have to
Ken-
abstain.
I'm sorry, Ken Vitale.
Oh. I thought
And can anyone hear me?
I can hear you,
I can
Ken.
hear you, yeah.
Breaking up a little.
Okay.
All right, okay, so I'm looking for a motion to accept the minutes from the February 10th, 2020 Board of Education Budget Workshop Meeting.
I'm here and I can hear everyone fine. Can you hear me?
Yes. So do I have a motion?
That was Betty.
I made
That
a
was
motion,
Betty?
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, do I have a second?
My son is probably using all the bandwidth playing video.
I made the second, Bill.
Susan made the second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Does anyone oppose? Does anyone abstain?
I have to abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
And Zyman.
Okay, so you got that, Mary?
Second.
I have it.
Okay, very good. Okay. The minutes from the March 3rd, 2020 special meeting of the Board of Education. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes under the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Was that Kim?
Aye.
I'm sorry. I
I'll
didn't-
make it. It's fine, Susan.
Susan? Do I have a second?
Yes, Charles.
Charles? Thank you, Charles.
Okay.
Any further discussion, guys?
No.
Any further discussion? No?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Does anyone oppose? Anyone abstain? Okay, Mary?
I got it.
Okay, very good. All right, so I will turn it over to Dr. Scarpetti for the superintendent's report.
So good evening, everyone. And for all of you that listening at home, I know that we're in a situation that when we truly sit down and think about it, it's a surreal moment for all of us. I don't think anyone could ever imagine we would be in the environment that we are in today. I know I didn't. I truly believe that the challenges we face, we're dealing each day. and we need to do our best to meet the needs of our families and students. We received a ton of feedback, some positive, some that are not, and we're working with our building principals and teachers to address each one. But I thought it'd be the best thing to do is to really start and go back, even from the decision regarding the school cancellation. We've gotten a lot of calls and a lot of misinformation that has been sent out or shared. I'd like to begin. Bill, could you just double check your mute again, please? Yeah, you're still. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's better. Thank you, Mr. Kraut. To begin with, I can't thank Dr. Mohammed enough. Dr. Mohammed is our the director of health for the town of Orange. The Emergency Management Committee and also our police or fire, they've worked collaboratively since the get-go. Prior to making the decision, we were on daily talks with Dr. Mohammed. And I have to say, to be totally transparent, when I woke up that Thursday morning on March 12th, I had no idea that I was going to be closing the schools. Things have changed rapidly. They are constantly changing. The information that we received, and I believe board members, you received that same day, one message we received, if we kept the district open one day longer, even one day, never mind two, the impact could be severe. And that said, that made myself and other superintendents around the area make that decision that day. Prior to that, though, we met as a leadership team every day in preparation and getting ready supplement learning, which we had the day after, which was Friday. I know for a lot of people, some districts were going into distance learning. And at that time, there was the State Department of Education shared a choice for districts. It was supplemental learning versus distance. What they required for the distance learning was a signed statement attesting that the district had to consider all risks and factors and would be complying with every one of them, applicable to the state and federal laws and policies, including but not limited to employment laws, collective bargaining agreements, and special education. I know some districts, may be few, jumped right on board with that waiver. I know I was reluctant, and I was reluctant for the board to sign their name, or even our chair to sign our name, to say that we would meet all those requirements. I think the majority of superintendents felt the same way and shared that sentiment with the commissioner. Soon after that, the commissioner, along with the governor, waived that and said that waivers were not required. And then you saw more and more districts joining in. And even prior to getting there, it was that safety first. It was that decision to get our students and faculty out of our buildings. Prior to that, it was making sure our buildings were clean. And then quickly, was to feed our students. When we were looking to feed our students, it was something that we were looking to do on our own. And then with the collaboration of Amity School District, who jumped on board and who actually led the way about feeding our students, we were able to feed our students at Amity High School, which transitioned to the middle school, and now serving more students. To this date, we're serving about 300 of our students in Orange at Amity Middle School, which we're happy to. And for any of you that are out there in need, or even if you just want to bring your child out, please don't hesitate to go out and reach out to Amity Middle School and pick up lunch for your students. As a friendly reminder, lunch is also given to you on Saturday. When you go there Friday, they provide it for the weekend too. In addition to that, is when we were going through the process of our Chromebooks, with our supplemental learning, was to get ready our Chromebooks. And there was a lot of information going on. Some people, again, called, and we appreciate the feedback, no matter if it's positive or not. This is how we learn. So again, anyone who's listening that's a parent who is maybe going through some challenges, is unhappy with some decisions we're making, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know we see positive. It's sometimes interesting when you talk with a parent who's liking what we're doing, other parents that have some concerns, parents that may say we're giving too much work, other parents saying not enough. And so we're trying to do our best to balance that out. But one of the feedback that we received initially was the concern about even where germs or the coronavirus may live. And because of that decision, we decided not to hand our Chromebooks out immediately. Some of you may have read, and again, the information has varied, that depending on the surface that the disease may have contact with, it could be anywhere from 48 to 72 hours. And so what we did was wait. We also want to make sure any of our staff that we invited in to prepare and pack up our students' desks and Chromebooks, we want to make sure they were safe. And so we did that 3 days, we cleaned, we waited another 3 days, and when we passed out. We even received feedback from parents of saying, I really feel uncomfortable of signing something and touching with a pen. And then we even changed that process. To this date, for all of you that know, and again, Mr. Allring, if you don't mind posting the website for any parent who need additional Chromebooks. To this date, we have given 546 Chromebooks to our students. We believe that amount is going to increase. I know we sent a survey out to all our parents. And when we sent that survey out, I think parents, like all of us, were hoping that this wouldn't last as long as it has. When we looked at that survey, so if we're a family that filled it out and said, yeah, we have a computer at home, but when they're working from home and they're using that same computer and they have 1, 2, or maybe 3 students there, they realized that the accessibility technology is not what was available to them, and they called up. So we do have Chromebooks. That is something that we've invested in, and we are fortunate to have in our district to provide to your students or your children, our students. So please do not hesitate to reach out if you need additional. Also during this time when we were providing supplemental learning, we called OTL, or Orange Teachers League, and into our leadership teams and get the advice and that they heard and concerns that they had as teachers. We took that advice, also what they shared, in order to provide what we thought would be the best results. And what I shared with them, and I share with all of you, we need to do our best to provide whatever we can for the needs of our students. And this is why it's really important that you reach out to your building principal. Even though we've transitioned and people have been incredibly patient during this time, we know that we have to continually grow with this, because we, depending on the developmental needs of our students and where the process we are with our teachers, hopefully you've seen a difference of where we started and where we are today, and we hope to progressively increase in that. And what I mean by this, you may recall that Monday we were supposed to have a delay. And it wasn't to go over new learning. Over the past 4 years, we've shared with teachers Google Classroom. Some teachers have taken that, but we know some teachers did not do Google Classroom every day in their classroom. And we knew that was going to be the foundation of building our phases. And at this time, Dr. Russo, would you mind going over the phases for the entire board and those listening at home, and where we were and where we are today?
Sure. So as Dr. Scarpetti mentioned, phase 1 included initial resources that provided maintaining skills or opportunities to maintain skills. And then phase 2, which did begin on March 23rd, included grade-specific learning targets from our curriculum with resources and suggestions for creating manageable environments and daily routines at home, since learning at home was a whole new experience for many of us. Then on March 30th, we launched phase 3. And what was really different about phase 3 is that our teachers, while they also relied on grade-specific learning targets from our curriculum, they were now able to provide support to our students. So the prior week, they were all meeting in grade level teams and preparing for that launch. So that really was stage 1 of phase 3. And then stage 2 was getting comfortable with submitting assignments on Google Classroom. So for grades 4, 5, and 6, there was some familiarity. But for grades pre-K 1, 2, and 3, that was really something new. So we have to say that each phase provided opportunities for us to identify challenges and then to try to resolve these at smaller scales. And so while the rollouts have been slow, they've been cautious, but we think more effective because we've given everyone an opportunity to acclimate to this new way of learning. And then the week prior to break, we piloted our virtual classrooms for face-to-face interactions. And we've had a lot of teachers engaging in those this week, and more are set to continue that practice until the end. And so now all classroom teachers do have virtual classrooms. We have provided resources and access for all so that they have the tools that they need to provide those personal touches and Orange identity to our curriculum to support our, the library media specialists have been great about providing training every day, all hours of the day to our teachers. And they all have access to tools and resources to be able to reach out to students. So Dr. Scarpetti, don't know if there's anything else you would like me to add to that.
No, Dr. Russo, thank you.
You're welcome.
As I continue, Mr. Kraut, I just want to share with you that part of our reach out, we've talked with our PTO presidents, and we are scheduling a meeting with them this Thursday. We continue our leadership meetings, which principals and directors will provide feedback to the school community. And I think it's very important that, again, please don't hesitate to reach out to your teachers and your building principals so we could get as much feedback as we can in order to address any needs or any adjustments that we need to make. And I know at my last letter that I sent, I hope the parents had a chance to read it, but I can't thank the parents enough. I know, as I said earlier, we can never imagine the place that we've been put in, especially the parents. I know there's a dichotomy of parents that are dealing with different situations. Some of it has to do with health issues, financial issues. We hear you. We want to make sure that their support's provided. We have a ton of resources on our webpage. But again, we can't thank you enough as you support your children and all of us as we go through this process and learn through this. And lastly, again, to all our staff, I want to thank them. They've participated and are learning to grow through this in order to provide the needs to our students. Yes, Mr. Kraut.
If anyone has any questions for Dr. Scarpetti, let's try it. Okay, I see Betty. Go ahead, Betty. I can't hear Betty.
First of all, I want to say thank you to all the teachers and staff who I know have worked tremendously hard to institute and phase this whole program in. But I'm wondering, how are teachers reaching or knowing if a student is not participating, and what is being done for those students who are kind of, I don't know, I want to say not left out, but where you don't have information to know whether they have are accessing or participating. That's one question I have. And the other question is, I don't know if you said how many students did you say you are reaching each day with the meals, Dr. Scarpetti?
That was approximately 300 students, Betty.
Every day?
Correct.
That's wonderful. Okay. So Dr. Russo, is there any way for teachers to know, and what are teachers doing if they have if they're not sure?
The teachers are checking in to see who is submitting assignments, and they interact with all students. Anyone who is not interacting, they call, they reach out, and they find out. And parents can still report absences the way that they always do. So teachers do know if someone is not submitting assignments, if they're not hearing from them, if they're not interacting, then they do reach out. And we have our aides that are also helping with that process. And, you know, there was one thing I forgot to mention. In that professional learning, the teachers are also learning about creating screencasts and pre-recorded videos for those lessons too, to add those personal touches. As we look at the learning targets and the learning resources that are on the website, everyone can see what the teachers are posting. And so if you want to look, grade 3 is a great example too of teachers who have really become familiar with those pre-recorded lessons, and you can see all their lessons on there as well. So yeah, so on our website, you can see what every single grade level is doing. Matt, if you can scroll down maybe to the writing, maybe just like Tuesday's assignment, Tuesday writing lesson, just for an example. So actually, if you scroll up, you passed it.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So, and like if you click on these links, you will see recordings of our Orange teachers bringing those lessons that team level planners have created, bringing them to life for the whole district.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Russo. Thank you,
Oh,
Dr.
you're
Scarpetti.
welcome.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Dr. Russo or Dr. Scarpetti? Okay, I'll ask you one more time. Does anyone else have any questions for Dr. Russo or Dr. Scarpetti? Very well. Christine, are you out there somewhere?
I'm here, Bill. How are you?
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all again, even if it's only on the screen. I also would like to start off just with a quick thank you. I know it's repetitive, but it is time, and I think it's critically important to do those thank yous. And I'd like to thank Dr. Scarpetti and the board for their leadership during this whole thing and the way they've thought about people and employees, parents, students, and how this impacts us all very differently. I'd like to thank first responders and healthcare workers, as always. They do inspire us. And also like to thank all of our employees for all of their patience and dedication during us trying to figure out this whole process. So to start then, on the current budget, we are at this time tracking under budget. Our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our aides, our security monitors, custodians, food service staff, they're all working. They continue to work and get paid. And we do have a slight savings because we're not using our buildings. So utilities and repairs and some substitute teachers and things. So there is some savings there. With regard to next year's 2020-2021 budget, it's always hard to get out. We have had reductions in that budget of about $500,000 since we last met face to face. We have the areas of those reductions are since we've met with the town and we've reduced our healthcare liability. We've also agreed that many of our capital items will be funded by the town. So we've reduced areas in IT, in student Chromebooks and laptops and other capital items. So we've had reductions there in our hardware and software line items. We've also reduced the municipal energy line item as we looked at it, and additional Munis software and training. So we've had a $500,000 reduction since we last met. At that time, our budget was 7% over the prior year, and it currently stands at about 4.6% over the prior year. We sent out the budget worksheets. We're at a 21,865,000 budget. And the Board of Finance has requested an additional 450,000 cut. And the board will be discussing that later as part of the agenda. So that's budget update. As far as our Munis systems, due to COVID-19 and the inability to do face-to-face training, the town has postponed the Munis Go Live for the financial module to June 1st and the payroll module to September 30th. So we're still working that through and the timeline's there. And as Dr. Scarpetti mentioned, with regard to food service, our cafeteria staff are prepping meals at the Orange Middle School, approximately 300 a day. And I'd like to thank the Amity team, as Dr. Scarpetti did, for organizing a lot of that. And I'd like to thank our Orange cafeteria staff. They're very brave and dedicated ladies that are out there prepping, and all of the people who are, handing the food out at the Orange Middle School. And I think that's it from my side on the update.
Okay, do we have any questions for Christine? I can only see 5 people, so if you have a question, speak up, please. Okay, I'll ask you one more time. Do we have any questions for Christine? Very well, thank you. Mary? Mary?
Mary Ito.
Oh, there you go, thank you.
Yep, just getting my mute button off. So nice to see everyone. So I'll start with the common theme for tonight, our COVID-19 plan. Special education staff, that's all certified staff, and our behavior analyst and our assisted behavior analysts have been providing individual education services based on the learning opportunities and instructions for special education students commensurate with the general education instruction. So we have been working with our students since the first day that the district decided to roll out instruction, and we've actually been a little bit ahead of the curve, as our students require a very unique platform for learning. So we were able to begin video conferencing a little bit sooner than general ed was, because we're dealing with one-on-one at that point. So we set up individual Google Classrooms for specific students based on their goals and objectives. Staff have made phone calls, provided video instruction and counseling. These have all been ongoing. We work very directly with individual families to determine a plan that best meets their specific challenges during this time. So we have an IEP and we have legal obligations, but most important, we need to be working with our families to be responsive to the challenges that they are facing. And the staff has been really tremendous about responding to individual family needs. Our social worker, our school psychologists, and principals, Betty, this goes to your question, have been reviewing weekly students of concern and have been reaching out to families if they are not seeing a student responding through Google Classroom, or families aren't answering the phone calls. Our school social worker has even made some home visits to reach out to families to make sure their needs are being met. So between school social workers, school psychologists, or our school social worker, we only have one, but our school psychologists and principals, they've been really supporting the school-based team regarding those concerning students. We have also implemented a special education academic support center, which actually began officially today. Special education teachers are monitoring that. However, that is being supported. The students are being supported through some of our paraeducators. And getting to what our paraeducators have been up to, they've been engaging in technology training with regard to Google Classroom, as well as other Google applications that are beneficial to their knowledge, whether they're supporting a student in the distance learning, or frankly, when school reopens, this training has been really beneficial to their learning. All of our paraeducators are enrolled in 130 hours of training modules. They are engaged in them 4 out of 5 days a week, with the 5th day being a debrief with our RBTs and our BCBA to review the learning that is going on in the learning modules. I've had a lot of positive feedback from the paras, but they're also quite challenged by being students again, but they have been very eager about the new learning and have found it to be beneficial. In addition to that, some of our paras are working directly with students under the supervision of the special education teachers in a remote academic learning center, as I noted earlier, with the responsibilities of our special education staff. Our registered behavior technicians have been working very closely with our most neediest students under the direction and guidance of our behaviorist, our BCBA, and our BCABA, our assistant, to provide direct instruction via video conference sessions. Most of that kind of looks more like they're coaching a parent who is sitting side by side a child, and they are instructing the parent through the learning lessons, as these students really need hand over hand guidance most of the time. The RBTs are also facilitating the support sessions with our paraeducators as they are going through the learning modules, and they also have their own Google Classroom set up with the paraeducators to have ongoing discussion about what they're learning, and face-to-face conference time, video conference time on Fridays to discuss the learning and to debrief with them. So to continue on with the theme of COVID-19, because that is our topic, over the weekend, I began calling all of our special education student families. I was able to reach 59 of them up to this point, but I will continue to reach out to them as the week progresses. I had an overwhelming response of positive feedback regarding special education services. Families have been really grateful for what the staff has done, and their willingness to work with the family to collaborate and to find a time that works best for the family, and to consider the staff's need as well, but mostly the families. On the topic of extended school year, because we've already had to begin planning for that, applications have been coming in from our staff who are willing to work our extended school year program, our ESY. So with the guidance that we are currently waiting for from the State Department of Education and the Health Department, we will better understand what that learning will look like, whether we will be continuing distance learning or whether we'll be able to be allowed into buildings under, I'm sure, strict guidelines to work directly with students. That's yet to be seen, but we are moving forward with planning and anticipating that we will be offering the extended school year program as we would any summer. Just may look a little different this year. Our primary mental health grant that we had applied for and received this year, unfortunately, was interrupted due to the school closure, but we have been able to use the funds to pay our child associate to begin to reach out to families during the health crisis to assist them in supporting the family, whether that's connecting them with our own staff or to connect them with services such as 211 services in collaboration with Diane Downing, our school social worker. So we are able to continue using those funds, but just in a different way. And then on a final note, I thought it was noteworthy to share with the board that our special education student population has increased by 20 students from October 1st. We had a count of 122, and on April 6th, our count was 142. And doing an analysis of that, most of those students are kindergarten pre-K students with 11 additional students qualifying for services. And then the other schools each had a fair distribution of 2 to 4 students amongst those schools. But our out-of-district students remain the same as 5. But I just wanted you to be aware of that. That is the most special education students Orange has seen in the history of the special ed department, from what I understand. So I thought it was noteworthy to share that increase. And that's all I have for tonight. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mary? Any questions for Mary? Very well, thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think we're going to move on to board business. Be patient, I have some things to read here. This is basically housekeeping. We do these particular motions every year. The first one is operational memorandum number 05-20- process for submitting the healthy foods certification statement for school year 2021. Pursuant to CGS section 10-215F, I am looking for a motion that the Orange Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutritional standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1, 20 through June 30, 21. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups. Do I have a motion to accept that?
I'll make the motion, Susan.
Okay, Susan, do I have a second? You'll have to speak up because I can only see Betty at this point.
That's Ken. Ken was making a second.
Who is?
Ken
Ken
Ziman.
Simon.
Oh, yes. I'm
Oh, okay.
Again, I
Ken-
forgot. Okay.
Ken Ziman made the second. Any further discussion on this? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Does anyone oppose? Anyone oppose? Does anyone abstain? Very well. Mary, do you have that?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. Second, I am looking for a motion for the Orange Board of Education to allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutritional standards and beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. The sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. The sale is at the location of the event, and the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before 2:30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held. Do I have a motion to accept that?
I do.
I'm sorry,
Mary.
who was that?
Mary.
Mary Wieslander?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Hi, Mary, how are you? Do I have a second?
Sure.
Christian, thank you. Any further discussion on that? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Is anyone abstain other than Betty? Okay, you have that, Mary?
I do.
Okay, very good. Number 3, budget update, discussion and possible action on final 2021 school budget. Dr. Scarpetti, do you want to start the discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Kraut. Board members, I think sometime last week, I shared with you an email where I received information regarding the Board of Finance decision. I want to reference the Executive Order 71 is what I shared with you in the email at that time. Since we're not following what we typically, how we govern the budget with, the responsibility falls on the Board of Finance. Thanks to the Board of Finance, we actually, they are providing capital funds. I think it's around $160,000 of what is in our budget next year. But though in addition to that, they are made the decision to cut our budget an additional $450,000. So we have to begin to look at next year's budget to see how we can remove certain things. Me and the team started to looking at that already. So at the same time, we're looking at opportunities in this year's budget to create an agreement with the Board of Finance to establish a non-lapsing account. A non-lapsing account allows the Board of Education to carry over a maximum of 2% of this year's budget to next year's. So we're specifically looking at those line items where we will have savings due to the pandemic, specifically pertaining to items such as transportation, gasoline that pertains to transportation, payroll savings. That could also include not needing overtime or substitutes, utilities, since our schools are empty. And so we are at a place where we have to make some decisions in order to cut an additional $450,000 from our budget. In addition to those items that we are looking at and seeing what we could do to cut and to hopefully, as many Board of Eds are doing, from my understanding right now, looking at that non-lapsing account. In addition to the Board of Finance, they share thoughts on the amount of class sections we have when we presented to the boards, when we adopted the budget back on March 5th. And they shared those same sentiments at their meeting last Monday. I know many of you attended that meeting. I believe that board members shared this as the Board of Finance, approximately, I think, 4 sections where we could cut. I shared with you what our proposed budget and class sections are. And I also shared with you a proposal if we were to reduce 2 teachers. And what I mean by 2 teachers, those are 2 additional teachers, ones that we don't currently have. Why I propose that, and again, this is the power of the board to decide this. But why I propose that is I was looking to save all positions that are currently employed by the Board of Ed. And that's why I focused on those 2 additional positions. But I leave it up to the board to have a discussion at this time and their thoughts regarding the request from the Board of Finance and suggestions that they made where we could cut.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Scarpetti on what he just proposed?
Just a comment when you're ready, Mr. Kraut.
Go ahead, Charles. And then Betty, I see that you raised your hand. So when Charles is done, I'll make sure you, okay? Go ahead, Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Kraut. And thank you, Dr. Scarpetti. The town of Orange is in the education business. This is what we have done with tremendous success. It is our largest investment, and rightly so. It is our most important duty as a town government. Our success lies in a commitment of the community, taxpayers, parents, teachers, and our government. During the Board of Finance meeting last week, a Board of Finance member stated, "There's nothing better." Our community has a great team, from our first selectmen, other elected officials, members of the Board of Finance, and together we have done a lot of great things for the children of our school. I also agree with Board of Finance Chairman Houlihan, who stated that both Vince and Christine, referring to Dr. Scarpetti and Mrs. Cook, have done a great job in monitoring our finances. Our Board of Ed is also a well-run team. Every team needs a great leader. Chairman Bill Kraut has worked tirelessly and relentlessly for our budget to reflect a great value for the town of Orange. He has left no stone unturned for responsible cost savings, so that much of our assets can be directed to our fundamental goal of educating students in a safe and productive environment. Our proposed budget, passed unanimously, is not full of new costs fluffy initiatives, or extravagances. Our number was high due to an unfortunate link with the small pool of town insurance. I again renew my request that Orange investigate, like other municipalities such as Fairfield, to align themselves with a larger pool, reducing costs and reducing the risk of huge fluctuations like we've experienced this year. Our budget had tremendous reductions from prior years. Just a few highlights: a 34% reduction in preventional learning, a whopping 46% reduction in curriculum materials, a 70% reduction in special ed textbooks, a 25% reduction in special ed equipment, a 78% reduction in district utility software, a 37% reduction in technology. Is there anyone who doesn't think we're going to need more technology next year in our current status? I watched with great interest last week's Board of Finance meeting. As a fellow elected official, I applaud everyone who does their due diligence in asking questions and seeking what is best for our town. I certainly appreciate their work and cooperation and the money they've transferred to the capital funds in this endeavor. One of America's most successful organizations has achieved great success with a simple motto: do your job. It certainly is the Board of Finance job to manage our town finances and economic outlook. It is not their job, however, to tell the Board of Ed how to spend its money. That is our job. Each budget season, we've watched a tired harangue about class size. It is not the Board of Finance job to determine our class size. It's ours. Our board's decision cannot and should not be bullied or intimidated into changing our policy, which we believe is in the best interest of students. I was aghast at one of the Board of Finance members' comments 1 hour and 48 minutes into the meeting. I used to teach. You could put 40 members into a class. We are in a pandemic where social distancing is perhaps our only defense. And if we are looking and hope to return to an in-class setting next season, this is not the time to increase class size. I can't think of a worse time in American history to suggest increasing class size. Educators know and understand what Orange students today are more diverse, with complex IEPs, 504 learning plans. We have more English language learners than ever before. You just heard Mrs. Ito report from the special education department that during this school year alone, we have increased 20 special ed students. Board members are also aware that each year we increase from what our projected numbers will be over the summer and during the course of the year. Decisions on class size are best left to the professionals who know the complexity of the student body, the school needs, and the best needs of each school. Each year we've had substantial fluctuations, most notably in this past year with our kindergarten numbers. I, for one, trust the professionals running our district. I often have an acronym I remind myself of when decisions like this come up: INVITE. In Vince, I trust entirely. I hope the board members will continue our unanimous support for our policies and protect class size. This is not the time for this to be a budget casualty in a pandemic situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Betty, did you have something to say? Can't hear you, Betty.
What do we have for current projected enrollment for kindergarten next year?
Mrs. Haddock, that's 150 students as of right now.
Okay. All right. Do you know what our number was at this point in the last year?
It was around the same number, Mrs. Hadlock.
Okay. All right. I want to thank you for passing out the information to clarify what the class size looks like with our 2 additional teachers and what it would mean without the additional teachers. I found that to be enlightening, and I just want to be sure I understand what it really means. Without additional teachers, it looks like what you had done was move a grade 5 teacher to grade 1 at Peck Place School.
That's,
And
yes,
if
go ahead.
Right, and at Turkey Hill School, a grade 3 teacher was going to be moved to grade 1 to
That's
reduce
correct.
the size. And at Racebrook School, a grade 3 teacher was going to move to grade 4. I believe that's right. And what that would do is be, for the average class size, would mean instead of being at Racebrook School 18, it would be 19. The average class size at Turkey Hill would remain at 17. And the class size at Peck Place School, the average, I'm talking about the average class size, would change from 18 to 19. I just want to make sure I understand all these numbers and all these diagrams. Is that correct?
If you're looking at the averages, Mrs. Hadlock, let's start off with Racebrook.
Yep.
I believe the average of if we did not hire 2 additional teachers,
Yep.
it'd be 18.3 if we're looking at.
Right. Well, I'm calling that 19. Some classes
Okay,
would have
no, I
19.
just want to make sure we're looking.
Yeah, I am.
I
That's
believe
what I'm
that,
looking at. I rounded it up. 16.8 is really 17 students.
yes.
Yes.
Yep. And then conversely at Peck Place, again, just so if anyone's following, any board members are following, that's 18.2, correct?
Right. And would mean some classes would be 18, some classes would be 19. Yes. Okay. As opposed to 7 classes being 17 and some being 18. I just wanted to say the average size is changes by about 1 student average.
And then just to be clear with your statement, Mrs. Hadlock,
Mhm.
when the average, again, when you said some classes 17 or 18, we do have some classes that are much lower, but
Yes.
some classes that are
That are
higher. So
yes,
if
it's
you
an
look at-
average for the whole school.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Charles, for that very very forceful and very well thoughtful delivery of that information. I just want to make sure I understand all the numbers. Thank you.
Bill, if I can say something?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sue.
So I just wanted to,
Sorry, Ken, I saw you, so I'll have you next, okay?
That's all right.
thank you.
Go ahead, Sue.
I just wanted to note that we have always tried to keep our younger, smaller grades.
Mhm.
So pre-K, 1, 2, we try to keep those numbers very low because there's so much learning at that point going on. And children at that age need a little bit more hands-on. So we have always tried to keep that lower grades to be smaller, and then the higher grades, 3, 4, 5, 6, to be a little bit larger because the children can be a little bit more independent in their own learning. And I really appreciate the fact that it's consistent across all the buildings in that manner, and that we're being respectful that one building is not out of whack with another. So thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Ken.
I just wondered if that was a certification issue, moving a teacher from 5th grade to 1st grade.
There wouldn't be with that, Mr. Ziman.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a question or a comment?
Okay.
Go
I
ahead,
guess I have
Betty.
one more thing to say is my understanding, Dr. Scarpetti and Christine, is that the reduction, what you came down from 7% to 4 I can't remember what it is, 4.8, is because of the health insurance and the capital improvements.
Yes, Betty, it was health insurance driven and driven by the fact that we put some capital laptops and things like that. The town is paying directly for that as opposed to.
So we've already exhausted that situation, I guess is what I'm saying. The health
Yes.
insurance, that's a done deal.
We have, yes.
Okay. And Dr. Scarpetti, if we are able to do this 2%, money that would be on hand to use for next year as something that is left over, or because of a reduction in costs for this year due to the pandemic, we'd be able to take that money and deduct that from our 4.8% budget. Is that right?
Yeah, that would be the intent, Mrs. Hadlock.
And would that pay for the 2 additional teachers? Maybe. I don't have a calculator. I'm
Well,
not.
So what we're working on right now, Mrs. Hadlock, is that number. There are some things of those savings we don't know. For example,
Right.
utilities, and
Right.
we're hoping for that.
Okay.
You know, overtime, we're not expecting any overtime, and so we're really calculating those numbers. Payroll savings, transportation that
Right.
we negotiated with our bus drivers, and to kind of work on those numbers. Again, just so the entire board is aware, what we put as a line item for our teachers, for the 2 teachers, total $150,000.
Okay. All right. And I have one other question. It's wait a minute now. I'm trying to think of all the different summer school. Mrs. Ito, you said that obviously the students who are IEPs require the extended year. That's one thing. But are you going to be opening it up to tuition paying parents or not?
I think that might be a better question for Dr. Russo. But in terms of special education, those would be IEP decisions
Right.
that have already been made.
Yes.
However, I have been working on a plan to supplement services for students who may need something in addition to their extended school year that they would have already been entitled to. Perhaps something the 2 weeks before ESY, 2 weeks after, but those would be very unique situations, and that would not be tuition because they would be based on special ed.
Right.
But Dr. Russo may be able to speak more on any tuition students.
I guess I just wondered, would there be a reduction in the amount of staff that's needed if there was no students beyond those students that required the extended school year? I don't know.
There wouldn't be a reduction in our ESY staffing as long as all parents agreed to have their kids still engage in that as they had originally agreed to.
Okay.
So our staffing, if anything, we might have to increase our staff depending on the ratio that we may or may not be allowed if we're in a building.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just one other thing, if my numbers are right, that's the difference of like $432,000 for the non-lapsing account. Although that's based on this year's budget, I assume it would be based on last year's, but is that right?
Who are you asking?
So
2%
Ken,
of our budget?
in other words, Ken, I believe you're asking what would the total amount that we could put in a lapsing?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if it's that much. I think it's around 408.
Yeah, it's because I based it on this year's budget, which is higher, so it'd
Yes.
probably be a little bit less.
I believe
That puts us a lot closer.
$400,000 when we calculated that.
Yeah, it's got to be something over 4. So that would at least put us a lot closer. Okay. Just checking.
Does anyone else want to make comment?
I have one.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mary.
Go ahead, Mary.
I know that we have been working with the Board of Finance in trying to deal with the unanticipated high health costs that came down to both sides. Is there the freedom for the board to make decisions going forward if we look at an unexpected enrollment spike in any one of our schools that would allow us to hire the teachers that we would need to maintain even a smidgen of an increase?
You want to answer that, Vince? Or you want me to?
That has not come up, Mrs. Wieslander, but I will be more than happy to reach out to the Board of Finance with that question.
Thank you.
Mary, before you came on board, when Dr. Scarpetti first started, we did have a spike in enrollment, and we went to them, and I believe, was it 5 or 6, Vince? I can't recall. I think it was 5 or 6 teachers we asked.
It was 6 teachers, Mr. Crow.
It was 6 additional teachers. We went to the Board of Finance. We requested the 6 additional, and they granted it. So there was a history there that in the event that we have a spike like that, that they have been cooperative with us on that. Just so you, but going forward, a little different world today.
It is, but it is encouraging that we have some recourse if we needed.
Well, let me say this about the Board of Finance, and I think everybody realizes that they really have been very good in cooperating with us and doing the best that they can. They, much as we do, we have a responsibility to not only our kids, and they do come first, but we also have a responsibility to the taxpayers and the people that vote us in and brought, put us here to make decisions. So, I know that there is great concern in the town and in particular in the Board of Finance, what the coming year is going to bring. And there is a great concern for people who have in this town lost their jobs, don't know what's going on and what's going to happen. I mean, who would have thought? I know I wouldn't have, that we would be doing 300 lunches a day. That to me is sad. But it speaks volumes as to what's going on out there. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. And I don't think that it certainly is not the intent of the Board of Finance to bully us or anything else. They quite frankly didn't ask for this kind of decision making. It was kind of dumped on them, and it came from the top and worked its way down. So we have to work with it as best we can. That's why we're having this discussion. Is there anyone else that might want to add to the discussion?
I would like to, Bill.
Go ahead, Ken. Is that you? Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Thank you. Just a question about the mechanics of the non-lapsing account solution that was.
And can you breaking up? Can you move a little closer to your computer, maybe?
It seems that we compare our budgets to the budget from the previous year, and not. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
how's that?
There you go. That's better.
No.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'll try this again. It's a question about the mechanics of the non-lapsing account. So our budgets seem to be based on the budgets from the previous year and not from actual spend from the previous
Hey,
year.
Mr. Vitale, I'm sorry to
So my
interrupt.
question is, has anyone, and it's to anyone who may know, if we decide to take 2%, if we find 2% from the 1920 budget and move it to a 2021 budget, does that present a problem for us in next year, the 21-22 budget, where we are 2% behind out of the gate? Yes, Dr. Scarpetti.
Sorry, Mr. Vitale, you're going in and out. I was recommending our IT director.
Close it again?
But I think I understood your question. Let me repeat it. And
I see our Brady channel, there's some puzzled faces, so am I not coming through?
It's very difficult, but I believe that at the very end I understood your question, which let me repeat it in case I misheard you. Is that
am I coming through?
Yeah, can you hear me, Mr. Vitale? So I believe what Mr. Vitale was asking was with this account, if we put 2% or any amount that we put 2% in.
If you're in and out also.
All right. Matt, are you listening, Mr. Allring?
Yes, I am.
Would you recommend Mr. Vitale to sign out and sign back in?
He could always call in with his phone. That might be the best bet.
Yeah, I was just going to recommend tell Ken to stay connected with the video, but tell him to call in with his cell phone.
Sounds good.
Please continue. Don't wait for me and my question.
So Christine, I don't know if you've heard Mr. Vitale's question. I believe what he was stating was if we were to pursue this pathway of a non-lapsing account, how would it impact next year's budget?
Yes, if that was the question, next year's budget would be reduced. We would be spending money out of the non-lapsing account. And it would put a bit of a hole into the 2022 budget, which is the year after that, because again, we'd be looking at a comparison versus the 2021 budgets again, and they'd be already significantly reduced and then being set again in 2022 with a reduction in 2021. So you'd be setting a baseline, in other words, that's lower going forward. Does that make sense?
So let me understand you, Christine. What you're telling us is if we take, and I'm just going to use round numbers, $300,000 and slide it forward, that we're setting precedent. How are we setting precedent? Do we base, I don't think we base each congruent budget on the past budget, or do you use that as your baseline? Is that what you're saying?
No,
that's not written in stone, right?
No, it's just what we use as a comparison. Oftentimes is what we're comparing to when we say we're X amount over the prior year. So what we'd be doing, we'd reduce the budget by the 450 as requested by the Board of Finance, and then we'd have money on the side to use to do things in those areas where we need it. So we'd be able to spend money, but then you'd be your official budget is still set lower.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, Sue.
So we do zero-based budgeting across the board. So while I agree with Christine that when you compare from year to year, we're still going to be saying last year's budget was reduced by $450,000. And so therefore, in comparison, all of our percentages will most likely look larger for next year. What happens is that we're going to be looking at what do the children and staff and administrators, what do we need for the school year for next year? At the very end, when we're saying it's a X% over last year, we have to also remind the Board of Finance, each other, whoever's on the board, everybody, that last year, meaning this year that we're doing it, we reduced our budget by $450,000. Not 5 cents. We reduced it, and we are going to leverage efficiencies that we have for this year to cover some of next year's, so that the following year, those numbers, well, if we compare it to the actual numbers as opposed to the reduction, we still would be fine because our budget will still be what we're saying it is. If we're funding it, we're reducing it by a certain amount by cuts and then funding things with this year's budget, right? This year's efficiencies. We can still compare it to the original numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand that that's the way we should be looking at the budget. We're not looking to set precedent and live by that precedent by what we're doing right now. This is a different time and a different place. And pretty much, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, that's pretty much how we look at our budget year to year.
Every year we look at what did we spend, but what do we need to spend? And then we do the comparison. What I'm suggesting is that we know what our budget is. We're going to reduce it some. We're going to leverage whatever we end up having inefficiencies for this year and putting into a non-lapsing account. If we do it as a line item at the bottom or funding for it, we can still compare it to our budget items that we currently have.
Correct. And quite honestly, we have no idea what next year is going to bring.
Nope.
I mean,
we also
this
don't
could
know
be,
what
we could be, you know, like a phoenix and rising out of the ashes, or we could be in deep trouble. I just know that there's a lot of concern out there about all of that. So, anyone else? Any other questions for Dr. Scarpetti, or anyone else have any comments? Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we need to do is we need to give Dr. Scarpetti some direction on this issue. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Scarpetti. Basically what Dr. Scarpetti is proposing, and I will use round numbers here, hopefully he will find $300,000 in savings in this year's budget. Apply that to the $450 that the Board of Ed is looking for us to discount our current budget at. And if we do not hire 2 new teachers, 300,000 and 150 is 450. Am I right on that, Sue?
Yes, sir.
That's what's on the table right now. If the board chooses not to take that path, then Dr. Scarpetti will need to go back and find $450,000 elsewhere. But $450,000 is the number.
A lot of money. Okay.
Go ahead, Beck.
Bill, but could we also not say that, you know, let's see if we can, the $300,000, the 2% lapsing money, and then can he find $150,000 somewhere else? Because frankly, we don't have, when do we have to have this done? Because we usually don't have to decide on class size until May. When does this have to be done by?
I believe the date that I've heard bantied around is somewhere around May 10th or 11th, I believe it is.
So I guess is that an alternative to say, to do the 2% and see if you can find $150,000 somewhere else? Frankly, I don't know where that would come from, but, and then return and say, all right, this is where we're at. I don't know.
Well, that would definitely be my recommendation to Dr. Scarpetti, to look for that money everywhere that he could possibly find it. And it may, Dr. Scarpetti and Christine would know better than I. It may be possible that there's even further savings that we're not aware of just because it's not the end of the year. And that would certainly be a directive we could give Dr. Scarpetti. You know, maybe we end up with 1 new teacher. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, and the other thing is, if the kindergarten size does not, you know, there may be a teacher in kindergarten who could be moved somewhere else. I don't know.
That's correct. These are all, what we need to deal with right now is what we have in front of us.
Okay.
And I would agree with that. You know, maybe if the numbers don't go to 191 or whatever they went to, then of course that's a possibility. But we would have to trust Dr. Scarpetti and his team to do that. And trust me when I tell you that Dr. Scarpetti and his team have done their due diligence and turned over every stone at least twice.
Right. No, I
maybe even 3
understand that.
times.
Yes, I
So-
do understand that.
So it's not something that we want to do, but in my opinion, it's the best option at the moment. And if Dr. Scarpetti can work some magic, by all means, I would certainly be in favor of that. Any other comments?
Mr. Kraut?
Go ahead, Charles.
Thank you. I don't know about others, but I mean, this has all come together relatively quickly. on our behalf here. And I just wonder if my fellow board members have any sentiments to give ourselves a week and give Dr. Scarpetti and those more knowledgeable at the exact details of the budget some additional time, because this is, I agree with a lot of what the Board of Finance members said. It is unprecedented times, and I want to make sure that they understand. I appreciate their cooperation and collaboration. We all know we're in for a great unknown here. I think my primary concern is this budget was already as thin and as spare as it could be. And so to have a week's notice to cut $500,000 in a budget that many of us who are not elaborate spenders realize we were already withholding a lot of work that we really felt necessary. I don't think a week to give us some time to contemplate and for our administration to prepare a couple of other alternatives other than something that is going to be, would be directly impacting kids in a very negative way. So I guess that.
Go ahead, Charles. You good?
No, I'm deferring to Christian. I believe he had something to say.
Oh,
okay. I didn't interrupt you, Charles. I do apologize. I thought you were winding up, and we've got this lag going on with the Zoom thing that we're all getting used to. So if I cut you off, I apologize. Okay. The thought I had would be, and I think Dr. Scarpetti had mentioned this, was that because we're not on site, because we're not transporting, because we're not using up material supplies, we're not hiring subs, there are perhaps a number of categories in which we had anticipated spending a routine, looking back to the way we do years, amount of money, particularly in substitutes, that we're not going to. So I'd be interested in Dr. Scarpetti's letting us know what the amounts that we thought we were going to spend, but we're not going to spend because we're not actually in school grounds and we're not transporting, we're not hiring subs. That may add up to be a significant number. And I think that, piggybacking on what you just said, Charles, if we defer for a short period of time, I know time is of the essence, and we learn how much this course of events would otherwise have not had us spending anyway, we may be pleasantly surprised to find it's a significant amount of money. And then what we'd have to actually cut into, and I don't disagree with the sentiment that we're already year after year after year cutting into a very valuable resource of this town. It may not be as dramatic and draconian as the 2.2% that we otherwise are looking at in isolation. So I'd be curious as to what we don't have to spend in light of the fact that we're not having students go to school.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Did someone else have a comment? Did I hear someone speak up?
Ken, I've got
Ken,
one.
go ahead, Ken.
Just that never mind. I lost it. It's gone. So
If I may, Mr. Crowell, Mr. Zimon's collecting his thoughts. I want to make sure that I'm clear, because there are certain time constraints I do have other than what the Board of Finance may be putting. Mr. Young, to your question, and even others that have shared, we are starting to work out and put those numbers together. Again, some we won't even know until the very end of the year. As far as I understand it, and I believe I'm right, no matter what you decide, if we look at these options at Vince, we don't want to touch any teachers. That means I have to look at that and find $450,000. If the board decides of not hiring 2 new teachers, again, that cuts $150,000, and then I have to look for $300,000. But as I shared earlier, I want to make sure that the board supports this and that there's no board members that may think differently. Is there any talk or any thoughts of the board of cutting teachers that we currently have? The only reason why I'm asking that is because by May 1st, if that is the case, I have to write a letter to our teachers that would impact. I know that hasn't come up, but I want to be very clear with the entire board that that's a time constraint that I have to share out of, you know, the law, but also out of respect to our teachers, that if that would impact. But, you know, it's a difficult situation as we all know it. And, you know, I proposed that option of not hiring those 2 new teachers because of trying to find funds. And I appreciate all of you, specifically Mr. Flynn, sharing, you know, what we provided and what we presented to the Board of Finance originally, you know. But that being said, you know, our team will look at it and do what we can and look at next year and seeing what we could do without. That will need to be a constant reminder to all of you next year and all our parents, if there's things that we have to remove. But at the same time, I want to provide those options. But is my understanding correctly, I don't sense that any board member is looking to put a motion on the floor for me to cut any additional teachers, even though that was posed or mentioned at the Board of Finance meetings. Am I clear with that? And I go through Mr. Kraut to guide the board with that.
To speak to your, thank you, Vince. And to speak to your point, Charles, you were correct in that, you know, you get no argument from me that we cut our budget to the bone. However, if we move forward with the hiring of the 2 additional teachers, then that money is going to come from the bone, if you will. And I, in the past, whatever it's been, 5 or 6 weeks, Dr. Scarpetti and I have had lengthy conversations on how, at this point in time, we really don't want to lose anybody, any employee. So I think the better option would be to hold on to staff as it exists and increase the class size, whatever that average is, 1, 2 people, and let Dr. Scarpetti find the rest of the funding as best he can. And to Betty's point, if Dr. Scarpetti can pull a rabbit out of his hat and come up with some additional money, that's fine. Just please beware that the Board of Finance does not want at this particular time to raise anybody's taxes at all. I know that the state is concerned about tax revenue now, all the towns and all the cities, because people, quite frankly, may not have the money to pay their taxes. And we have to be cognizant of that. Anyway, anyone else want to make a comment?
Yeah,
Ken?
I found my thoughts.
Okay, Ken.
Number one, obviously, I don't think we want to lose any staff. That's just one. I really think what we're in is the tsunami where the water goes out and the wave hasn't even come in yet. And I'm afraid that's what's coming. So I don't think we can do much about this except take the hit. The Board of Finance has been more than fair. They've been talking about teacher size for years. That's based on somebody whose daughter is probably about 40 now. So it doesn't really have a lot of relevance. But they've been good to us, and I think we just have to do the best we can. I'm sure Dr. Scarpetti will work with the budget we have. And if we're able to add teachers, that's terrific. That's it.
Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, Charles.
Yes, no, thank you. And I agree with Mr. Kraut's and Mr. Zimon's sentiment. We don't know what is coming. My main concern is that our discussion is really revolved around another board's suggestion as to how to fix our problem, and we really haven't explored any others. And I do have a problem with that. We all agree we're in uncertain times. We all agree that we have to be financially responsible to the town. But at the same time, you know, if we only look at one path and we don't look at others, I don't feel like we're doing the best interest of the taxpayer or the student. And so again, I feel like I'm being guided into a decision where I have one choice by forces that aren't really on the board, and I don't appreciate that. I really do understand, and I appreciate all the support the Board of Finance has given and has worked with us, as I talked about earlier, as we all are on the same team. But I'm highly uncomfortable with only exploring one answer to a rather complex solution.
Um,
So if I may,
I don't, go ahead, Sue.
I was just going to say that I don't believe that this suggestion, proposal, however you want to phrase it, is coming as this is the only thing people are considering. I know Dr. Scarpetti, I know Christine, I know Bill. Everybody's trying to figure out where we're going to get this money from. What's the best way that we will not impact children, that we are going to keep our staff that we want to keep, that we don't have to, Dr. Scarpetti won't have to send out any letters to say we're going to cut staff. Those 2 additional teachers originally were tagged for kindergarten. Depending on what our kindergarten numbers are, will determine whether or not we need them. And if we need to shift teachers, as I said in the beginning, so that we keep our smaller grades with smaller numbers and higher classes with higher grades, we'll be fine. So I don't think it's a matter of they're only saying one thing. I think they've bounced around many different ideas, and I'm sure they will continue to. But I trust in our superintendent, our business manager, and all of you to agree that we can't cut a teacher. We need all of our teachers. And we need to be able to allow our professionals to do what they need to do.
Susan,
Go ahead, Vince.
Sorry, Mr. Crow. Susan, if I may, I just want to make sure I'm hearing correctly because sometimes the sound doesn't come in clearly. If you happen to say, Sue, that we hired 2 new teachers for kindergarten, that I need to clarify if that's what you said. There was a form that I sent out with enrollment numbers, and you could see from last year to this year where the increases occur. Most of them, I think, I see what you're saying, Susan. Is that kindergarten, meaning kindergarten that's going to 1st grade, and why those numbers jumped, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
yes.
I just want to make sure I
Thank
don't
you for
want people who are listening or board members think that we're just kindergarten teachers. No, it's for other grades. Yes. Okay. Thanks for that clarification, Susan.
Okay, can I just,
Go ahead, Betty.
what I think I'm hearing is, for Vince, please pursue the lapse budget money. For now, keep the 150,000 for the new teachers, unless you can't find additional funding. And then I think we need to talk again, because I do agree with Charles. It's kind of like all of a sudden we have to get rid of all this money or find a way to cut that money. And I'm not someone who says we just have to automatically say go with the teachers. I just want to be clear that that is an option, but I think we need to wait and see if there's anywhere else that there's some money. And I know Vince and Christine have gone and looked and scoured the scoured the roadways, and Christian said perhaps there's another element that has not come to light yet that is a cost savings towards the end of the year. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, and you may have your smart minds that are closer to it may be able to figure that out. Does that make sense that we say that and then come back in a week? Is that enough time to make this all work? I don't know.
Oh, go ahead, Vince. I'm sorry.
Sorry to keep stumping on your words, Mr.
That's
Crow.
okay.
So in my mind, but I appreciate you sharing that. I guess the perspective I have is this, is that $450,000, no matter what the final decision is going to be $450,000.
Right.
And so that's the directive the Board of Finance has given the Board of Ed. In my opinion, if the time is given to me and my staff, I don't think a week is enough because, if we go into closer to June or the beginning of June, I could always hire 2 new teachers. We could always say no to 2 additional teachers. I think, again, I just want to make sure I'm hearing the entire board saying that, Vince, you're fine with keeping the amount of staff you have, which would be great. And that would be my recommendation. But it gives our staff, and especially with some of these items we talked about, like, for example, utilities, I was at a building today, I said, make sure all these lights are off, because we're trying to save. And if you're not in this room or in this section, turn these lights off. And that may sound like, oh my gosh, Vince, that's not a big deal. And to me it is, because I think every dollar counts, especially what's been put on for us to attend to and address. And I believe that, for lack of better terms, I don't know if it's a rush decision, because I think because of it's not impacting our current teachers now, we could decide May, at the May meeting, and have that time to really know exactly what those numbers, or even the beginning of June to hire 2 new teachers and interview during the summer. Because as I shared, the goal is to reduce $450,000. And as Mr. Kraut said, you know, I'm hoping and hearing the sense of the board of, you know, yes, it would be great to keep these 2 additional teachers. But I think it was Mr. Crowder, someone said, you know, well, maybe it may have to be 1. Because as I shared at the budget workshop, and it's not a situation that I know no one has asked to be in, as I shared with even in my superintendent's comments about the challenges that we face every day educating our students. We have to work through this one too. And I believe that even giving me a month, it's not going to, you know, extending it a month, it's not going to change. Does anyone understand what I'm saying? It's 450,000 is 450,000, you know, and the closer we get to the end of the year and the more savings we have, the better that will be. And the better I can present to the board and saying, this is where I finally landed with regards to the budget and what we could do with the non-lapsing account. And as a friendly reminder, the Board of Finance has to agree to the non-lapsing account.
Okay, but when is the Board of Finance voting on the budget for sure? Because isn't that the bottom line? The Board of Finance is going to be the ones that vote for the whole budget for the town.
And that's why I'm saying, Betty, I think my understanding is, and we could get clarification, I believe they made that decision already.
Oh.
You know, for at least for the Board of Ed side.
Okay. All right. So they're already going to vote on a budget that's $450,000 less.
That's my understanding.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, that's not what I understood. I thought they were still waiting for us to come back with figures. Okay.
I'll clarify that, Mrs. Haddock, and make sure.
And as to someone who said earlier, do keep in mind, I think it was Mary who asked, the Board of Finance has been very good about if something came up and there's an influx of students, they were right away ready to say, yes, hire the teachers and we will find the money. So keep that in the back of your mind.
Well, they've done that with teachers. They've done it with any number of things as long as I can remember. Just bear in mind, folks, that we are all on the same team. And 6 weeks ago, I don't think, or 7 weeks ago, any of us thought that we would be standing 6 feet apart from each other and have masks and everything else. This has come upon everybody quite quickly, including the Board of Finance, including the Board of Selectmen. If I understand Dr. Scarpetti, and correct me if I don't, Dr. Scarpetti, a month or whatever, you know, $450,000 is $450,000. Dr. Scarpetti needs some guidance. He also knows, and I believe it's in our policy, that if we're not going to hire those teachers, that we need to vote on that, whether we're not going to hire them or not. Hopefully, you know, who knows, down the road, you know, maybe, like I said, find some more money, but we're looking at $450. And in my mind, it's certainly not what I would want, but it's, as far as I can see, the best deal out there. And I can tell you that Dr. Scarpetti and myself, Christine, his whole staff has had, Susan, Jeff, countless conversations about where to find this money. And I have to give Dr. Scarpetti and his team credit, because they dug through a lot of minutia to get to where we are today, having this discussion in a short amount of time.
Oh, Bill, it's Kim. I have a point of clarification. So really, Vince, we don't need to take any action today, right? Because we've already established there are no staff being let go, and you don't have to hire right away anyway. The budget is what it is because of the Board of Finance. So there's no harm in just continuing to monitor the finances and see where we are in May, right?
That's correct, Mrs. Brown. As long as I know that this board is on the same page as I am with regards to not reducing the current teachers we have. Otherwise, we would have to send a letter out to those teachers and state that they are being non-renewed because of budget reasons. So that alleviates that. And then, as I said, if there were board members here who had that sentiment of not hiring 2 new teachers, that would help things out, of course, if a decision was made. But in my mind, the way you summarize it is perfect. No, we will have time because I could hire these teachers at a later date. It gives me and my staff the availability and time to kind of really look of what we've already started already, of these efficiencies that we weren't planning for, but because of the pandemic that we're realizing that we're going to have, and any additional efficiencies that we did because of decisions we made throughout the year. It will allow us that time.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, thank you. And first and foremost, thank you to our other town leaders and our other boards that have helped and supported us. And certainly, again, I know I've mentioned earlier, but thank you to Mr. Kraut and Dr. Scarpetti and our fellow board members. This has been a long process. Again, I think I'm the only one, so I promise this will be the last time I say it. I certainly can't entertain thoughts of reducing staff, but the verbiage is important to me. We believe that unanimously just a few months ago that these positions were necessary, not a luxury. These two positions to maintain our appropriate levels of education. So for me, I'm just one voice. I still believe strongly those are very important to maintain what our goals are and to maintain what that needs to be done. I think I may be in the minority, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Well, let me just say this to you, Charles. Your opinions are valued highly by everyone on this board, and we appreciate it. And your thoughts are well thought out and organized. And I do appreciate you taking the time that you obviously took to look into this. And this is why we're having a discussion. This board will always have discussions, whether we all agree or not. So thank you. I'm not so sure. I think we need to get clarification on what Kim said about they may have said that it's $450,000, but do we have to do anything, Dr. Scarpetti, to agree to that or not?
I wrote down on my notes to double check to clarify. Again, my understanding is that decision's been made, and that's something that we have to deal with, of reducing the budget for next year, $450,000. I will clarify that. I'll reach out and make sure that my understanding is correct. It seems that board members, some board members might have heard differently, but that was my understanding, that this is what we've been reduced to.
Okay. So yes, somebody said my name. Go ahead.
Ken, my understanding from looking at the video of their meeting was just that they had actually concluded the budget process and were relieved to be done. And part of that budget, the result of that was that we were going to lose $450,000. They had moved some of the money to capital funds. They had done this, and I'm sure they're of the opinion that this is done.
Okay. All right. I would tend to agree with that. But moving forward, anyone else have any other comments, questions?
Just one.
Go ahead, Mary.
I don't know if it needs to be said or not, but I want to emphasize the support for keeping our current teachers and not reducing any of those positions, if possible. Thank you.
No, that has been our goal from day one, with keeping all our employees. Not a time for people to lose their jobs or their insurance or whatever the case may be. Certainly not. Anyway.
And I would like to add to Barry's comment just that if we find that our kindergarten numbers are lower, that we don't let one of those teachers go, that there are plenty of places where that additional position could be used, whether it's reducing the kindergarten class size and keeping the same number of sections, or placing that FTE somewhere else in the district.
Mhm. Well, I think it's pretty clear that the Board of Finance is asking us to trim $450,000, and quite frankly, wherever it comes from, it's up to us as to where it's going to come from. So what we do with the money afterwards is, I guess, our business. Anyway, what is the board's feeling right now as this discussion has moved along? Do we have a special meeting in 3 days? I think Dr. Scarpetti has been fairly clear on the fact that it probably isn't going to matter much. Or do we make a motion for Dr. Scarpetti to move forward with the plan of the $300,000 minus the 150 and the 2 teachers? And if and when the funding becomes available, then immediately funnel that into 1 or 2 of those teachers. Susan?
I would agree with that. If you need me to make a motion, I will.
Anyone else have an opinion on that? Because I'm willing to make the motion. If you don't like it, you don't have to vote for it. If you do like it, that's fine too. But we do have to give Dr. Scarpetti some direction here. I think it's only fair.
What's the proposed motion again, Bill?
Susan, are you there, Sue?
Yep, I'm here.
Why don't you pen to
I
paper?
would say that we're going to ask Dr. Scarpetti to review to see where additional efficiencies can come into play at this time. We will target the 2 additional teachers to be put on hold and leverage a non-lapsing account for the remainder. And depending on what you ultimately come up with, will ultimately where that 450 comes from. The 450 has to come from somewhere. I would say the motion would say we are targeting to remove those 2 positions and take $300,000 for the non-lapsing.
Okay. But then moving forward, if additional funds are discovered at the board's discretion, Dr. Scarpetti could move forward with 1 or 2 of those teachers.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd leave out the part about the 2 teachers.
I'm sorry, Ken?
I'd leave out the part about the 2 teachers and just leave it up to Dr. Scarpetti.
Support.
And I would agree with that as well. If you leave that out, we have until the May meeting to address class size. The class size policy specifically designates the May meeting as the meeting to address class size. So we have time. To Charles's point, it gives everyone time to reflect on what other choices may be or just may not be. I mean, maybe this is our only choice, but I don't see it that there's any compelling reason that we have to address those 2 teachers today.
Okay, so Kim, if I understand you correctly, you were saying that the board trusts Dr. Scarpetti to do the right thing in cutting the $450,000 wherever that may lay, and then when it comes to the May meeting, he can see where we're at with those teachers.
Okay, yes. And I would just say, and you should add, without reducing any current staff.
Okay, I would agree with that.
So, a motion is made that Dr. Scarpetti will find the $450,000 that is needed to reduce the budget without the reduction of any current staff. Is that it?
I like that. I do like that. Are you making a motion, Betty?
Yes.
Sue, are you okay with that?
I like Betty's better anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So did you all hear
And
Betty?
I will second that motion.
All right.
Motion.
Kim is seconding the motion. Any further discussion, guys? Any further discussion? Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Can it be read back just once with the way Betty just said it? Because there was a glitch in my audio.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mary,
do you have it, Mary, or should I say it?
Just find the 450 without laying anybody off.
Right.
Yeah, Betty, you can say it again if you'd like.
Okay, I make a motion that we let Dr. Scarpetti find the $450,000 needed to reduce the budget and do that without touching any of the current staff, without reducing any current staff.
Did you get that, Mary?
I do.
Okay, Charles, go ahead. And the motion was second by Kim, I believe. Go ahead, Charles.
Thank you, and I appreciate everyone's sentiments. I just want to explain why I won't vote for that one, and that is just because I feel there could be a better solution than what we had planned on. Unanimously, just a few months ago, we felt that those two positions were needed. My opinion has not changed. I certainly realize the economic reality, but without having those built in, I'm very concerned. So that's just explaining why I'll be voting no.
Okay, I appreciate it very much. So Betty made the motion, Kim seconded. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? If you say something, if you have anything to say. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Charles, anyone else? You have to speak up. Anyone abstain? Okay, Mary, do you have that?
I do.
Okay, very well. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Let's move on to our standing committees.
Hey, Bill.
Yep.
It's Mary.
who's
I
that?
think we have to go back to item number 2 we skipped over.
We did we?
The 403.
Oh, I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay. All right, guys, a little more housekeeping. Sorry about that. 403B, Plan Document Amendment and Restatement Resolution. Do I have a motion to accept the 403B Plan Document Amendment and Restatement Resolution? Anyone?
I will.
Mary? Second?
Ken?
Ken? Ken Ziman?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Ken Ziman. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Ken Vitale. Okay, so it's Mary and Ken Vitale. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone opposed? Abstain? Anyone abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, Charles, you got that, Mary? You all set, Mary? Mary Shaw? I can't hear Mary.
I have it. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
all right, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to standing committees, Finance and Operations. Ms. Riccio?
So unfortunately, we ended up having to review 3 months worth of expenses because first the special budget meeting, and then we canceled our last meeting because we weren't meeting live. So there were 3 months of budget, expenses, and profit and loss to review. I know Ms. Scotch had received a few questions and has answered them. All the expenses were in line, and we are operating within budget at this point, hoping for a surplus that we can leverage. The other piece was that all the cafeteria workers, which we already know, all the cafeteria workers are supporting Amity, and I wanted to thank them.
Okay. Any questions for Sue? Very good. Personnel, Kim?
Okay, so in early March, we received the CABE policy audit report that we had requested a CABE audit of our policies. And the bottom line is that CABE identified 51 policies that we should review. 41 of those 51 policies are simply recommended because they represent good practice, but 10 are more significant because they're required by state or federal law. It is possible. Some of those, it just said that our date was missing, so we'll have to go back and see if possibly that we had adopted those, just double check the dates. I do anticipate that we'll see more policies just because that we'll need to address because of the current you know, the current situation. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that over the next few months. And so at some point, we'll have to make a decision and disseminate these, and that could be our summer reading.
Okay, any questions for Kim? Thank you, Kim. Mr. Flynn, Buildings and Grounds?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Kraut. And I'm going to just invite Dr. Scarpetti at the end of this. He may want to detail. I know that our maintenance team has been taking the opportunity provided with the schools closed to do a number of other tasks that he informed me of. And I apologize, I did not print those. And I don't want to close my screen and risk Zoom doom to open them. So if I miss anything, Dr. Scarpetti, please feel free if you wanted to add in some of the tasks. I know it's been a long night for everyone. I don't want to create a laundry list. Buildings and Grounds started in February with what we had hoped to be a town tour of our schools. And on February 25th, we met at Racebrook School. I did not realize when I scheduled it on the 25th, it was also Racebrook's parent night. So I do want to thank Principal Gray, who had probably the busiest evening of the year, graciously met with us and took us on a tour of the building. Dr. Scarpetti attended and shared a facility update. The Subcommittee of Buildings and Grounds and Security discussed that we really should be revisiting our 5-year plan and updating it and begin prioritizing some of our needs, which are growing. Of initial concern from our tour is the need at Racebrook for possible ADA compliant bathrooms throughout the building. Mr. Gray indicated that he anticipates a direct need for that next year. Mr. Kraut also suggested that we review our security policies. He had been in contact and suggested that we meet with the police department to explore some security, increased security in the schools. And unfortunately, obviously with the pandemic, we haven't been able to put that together yet, but we hope to soon. We had a detailed tour of Racebrook School with Principal Gray. I think it went almost about 2 hours. And there were a few concerns that we did see and are planning on addressing, including the rear loading dock, the 6th grade wing heating and cooling system, the need for some additional storage, some gym curtains, possible repairs to the art kiln, and the 5th grade floor. We had planned meetings in March at Turkey Hill and just last week at Peck to sort of complete our part of our spring tour, which we regularly meet at MLT. But obviously things have happened. So I know there's been another series of important work that our maintenance team has been doing that they probably could not have done without the schools being closed. If Dr. Scarpetti has any further comment, I would defer to him. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn and Mr. Kraut. Just to extend on some of the comments that Mr. Flynn has made, I go back to my initial sentiments about the cleaning of the school. As Mr. Flynn said, there's been a deep, thorough cleaning. We're buying products that at the beginning, even prior to where we are today, what the CDC guidelines were about norovirus, not corona, but norovirus, and buying products that had different kill time. And we did that research. We were also, as you can imagine, many things that are related to this pandemic are back ordered, but we are purchasing items that we're getting ready to use not only during the summer, but for the fall. One is called, and I'm trying to just recall the correct name. It's the machine is called Protexis, and it's this machine that actually you spray, again, with chemicals that kills any germs with, I believe, a 5-minute kill time, but it actually encompasses the whole entire object. So, the example that was given to us, you spray the front of a phone, for example, it just encapsulates it. These are conversations that came from the emergency management committee meetings of what we're looking not only today, but what we need to prepare for the future. In addition to that, we've actually addressed many things. There was an abatement that was done in the kitchen of Racebrook. We're looking to do the same in the office to replace it with luxury vinyl tile. We handled the loading dock at Turkey Hill School that needed to be removed. There's painting going on. So there's a lot of things going on, and we're trying to use this time wisely when our staff and students are not here. And we'll continue to update that in board updates, what we continue to do.
Are there any questions for Charles or Dr. Scarpetti with respect to buildings and grounds? Very well. Curriculum, Mr. Ziman.
I have no comment.
Okay. I'm directing this question to the committee chairs. Do y'all anticipate try to have meetings? I know Dr. Scarpetti and I discussed Matt possibly putting something together so we could have meetings that were put on our website. I believe, right, Dr. Scarpetti?
That's correct. Just as this meeting is, this is a public meeting, so we have to make sure that the public actually is able to see it and observe it. And so we're working on that along with any subcommittee meetings that any of the chairs seem to want to have. So Matt, our IT department, is working on that now.
So this is what I would do. I know that believe Susan is interested in having a meeting. If any other chairs would like to have a meeting, please contact Dr. Scarpetti and get an update as to where Matt is on that. And then if we can make it available to the public and you feel the need to have a meeting, by all means, we'll give it a go. Okay. ACES, Ms. Riccio.
So ACES did meet in March and April. Long and the short of it is that initially in March, we were pretty pleased that we were operating at a very nice surplus, and we're planning on finishing the year better than we had in the past. Unfortunately, with the COVID virus, a lot of the services that ACES provides are not being provided, so therefore revenues are down. So currently, we're operating at a deficit. We expect by the end of the year to balance out with a break even or possibly a small surplus. All of the budgets have been approved at ACES, all the schools that we had, as well as all the programs. At this point, we're happy if we ultimately break even. Any questions?
Any questions for Susan on ACES?
One other thing was that they originally had a gala planned. And of course, that gala has been postponed, and I'll let you know when the new date is if anybody's interested. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Dr. Scarpetti? We all set?
No. Again, thank you to all the board members making time to be accessible. I do want to reiterate to our entire community that our thoughts and prayers with all of you at this time. And for our parents specifically, I do encourage you at any moment to reach out to your teachers or your building principals. The feedback that you provide them, no matter if it's positive or things that we need to work on, are very crucial for us as we continue each day.
Okay, and I would just say to the board, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your hard work and the way you think through different issues and problems that arise. I really do appreciate it and respect everything that everyone has to say at all times. So I am looking for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. Sue can second it. Any discussion on that?
No.
No. That was very definitive, Charles. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.